I got a job using Unity. It was back when it was only available on Mac. You could only deploy to the web player or standalone Mac and PC. And the iPhone version hadn't been launched yet. So it was a while back. And at the time I was a guy who used to PC the majority of the time, so it was a very alien environment, so I kind of had to learn and hit the ground running. And I learned a lot about programming as well, because I was the only guy doing any of the Unity stuff, so I kind of had to learn. And then in around 2008, 2009, I ended up moving from the UK. I didn't mention that I'm from the UK, but yeah, I'm from the UK, believe it or not. And I moved from the UK to Copenhagen, where the main Unity office was back then. And I joined doing technical support. So back then, anyone who sent an email to support@unity3d.com, that came through to me. It was like my alternative email address in some ways. And then through my time at Unity, I've worked in various different roles. I've worked on the demo team, making demos and example stuff. But these days, I have the ridiculous job title of community evangelist. Which I'm still not comfortable with, but I've had it for a long time. But yeah, the basic concept is I travel around and I talk about Unity, meet people doing things with Unity, introduce them to other people that might help them continue making things with Unity. So my job's very much a case of trying to help Unity developers to be successful, basically. In a nutshell. Other than that, I also take care of the velociraptor population in and around Manchester in the UK. And I do that with one of these. And I make my own arrows as well. That's the first batch I've ever made. I made them over Christmas. I'm very proud of them, although I need to redo some of them, but yeah. So yeah, I do a bit of archery in my free time, which is always good fun. Although it's kind of led to this thing. I think there must be some kind of name for it, but it's once you get to a point where you can spot errors in Hollywood films for things. So like when they have the whole thing with computers and they have the whole enhance and zoom in and zoom, enhance and all that kind of stuff. It's like that, but with archery. So I start to pick up on things like that, for example. As soon as she shoots, that finger might just come off. It's going to be painful. It looks so cool, but no. And there's a lot of this, a huge amount. So yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of Unity when it comes to game jams. A little bit of the story. It's a little bit distracting after a while. It starts to hypnotize you. But yeah. In the early days, when I was first using Unity, I went along to the very first global game jam. I think it was the very first in 2008, I believe. And I went down to the one in London, and I think there was about 20 people or so. It was quite quiet. And I met with another guy who was using Unity, so I thought, well, I should probably team up with him because he was the only other guy using Unity. And we met up with a guy who did electronic music and had no games experience, and another guy who did 3D design for TV advertisements and stuff like that. So it was a very mixed group. It was very weird. And I was looking around on my old web space the other day, and I stumbled across an old video of the game that we made. I didn't know this still existed, so I was really happy to find it. But we made this game called Math, just like that. And the theme for that year's Game Jam was something along the lines of, as long as we're together, we'll never run out of problems, or something. Yeah. And the basic concept we came up with this idea of you have like a maze that you have to navigate around. but you can't see the edges of the maze, so you have to use the other objects to kind of float around. And what we found is that some people would kind of just like send all of these things scattering around and kind of judge from that. Other people would kind of like navigate around the edges and kind of take it carefully and slowly. But yeah, it was an interesting little project that was pretty cool, I thought. Never ended up going anywhere, so feel free to steal the concept and adapt it to yourself. But yeah, it was a really good time, and I really enjoyed it. And yeah, it convinced me that game jams are the way forward, and a really good way of having a lot of fun and having a really intense creative time. It was really cool. At that time, I wasn't working at Unity. But Unity had supplied trial licenses for the jam, although they were from an unreleased, unlaunched beta version, which ended up meaning that we basically just gave out all of these untested versions of Unity to people to work on intensively for 48 hours, and it didn't go down too well. But we soon fixed that. So one thing we kind of realised, like when I joined Unity, I was very active and very I was shouting about game jams a lot. And obviously with me moving over to Copenhagen to work there, there was a lot of game jam stuff going on in Copenhagen. And there was this kind of nice realisation where we realised that there's like a few kind of key things that are involved in a game jam, like the fact that you've got limited time to create something, but it was like a really super indie thing. Also, that it kind of required a lot of cross-discipline, whether that's just on an individual basis or having a team of very dynamic different roles involved, and also that they were great fun, which is obviously important. And we kind of noticed that there was a lot of parallels with the kind of overall concept and design of the tools that we were using and creating. So the limited time side of things, one of our main focuses, which we were kind of one of the earliest engines, I think, to kind of move more in this direction, was this concept of rapid iteration, the ability to kind of play with your concept and test it and modify it quickly and improve it and make it cool faster, fix it. So there was kind of a nice synchronization there. And we were super indie at the start as well. It's not like we were, say, used a huge amount back then with the larger AAA studios. We were definitely used mainly by the hobbyists and the people in their bedrooms and the indie teams back then. I mean, when I joined Unity, we were just like 25 people in a small house in Copenhagen, and I used to live upstairs in the house and then go downstairs to go to work in the morning, which was a little bit too much. So I had to. It only lasted about 2 weeks before I started going a little bit insane. Like, I can't handle living and working in the same place. But yeah, we were super indie, and we really enjoyed working with indies. They were kind of our friends, I guess, and I guess they still are. It's the same kind of thing. The fact that it's kind of a cross-discipline art game jamming, Unity kind of fitted in really nicely with that, because one of our main focuses, that still exists to this day, is to try and make things as easy as possible for everyone to use. So whether you're from more of a design background or from a programming background, you should be able to become familiar with Unity pretty quickly. And finally, the fact that we try and remove the possibilities for game jams not being fun to some extent. One of our main kind of, I guess, slogans in the early days was that we take the pain so that you don't have to. So yeah, we try and make the actual act of creating a game to be as easy and fun as possible, so you don't have to worry about too much of the hard work. Yeah, so we kind of became friends. Really awkward. But yeah, so we kind of we started taking game jams very seriously and trying to support them and sponsor them and everything as much as possible, because they are an incredibly cool way of developing new stuff. So that's a few off the top of my head of the game jams that I've helped support. For some reason, I've ended up becoming kind of like the game jam guy at Unity, so I do a lot of work to help support game jams. whenever there's a game jam, it's generally something I've been doing to help it. And it's crazy, like NASA did a game jam. I'm like, what? NASA? A lot of them are just kind of like, what? And really cool as well. And a lot of these have obviously gone on to create some really cool titles that have ended up being successful, or have at least kicked off a project that's now in early access or whatever. So yeah, I've seen a lot of cool projects from the game jams that I've maybe written a blog post about or something on the Unity website, and then gone on to see them succeeding in getting funding or a publishing deal or whatever. So yeah, that's the only ones I could think of. There's probably some others, and each one of them has probably got a hilarious story associated with it. Yeah, there's one or two funny stories there. But yeah, ultimately, it's all of the game jams is the goal. We want to try and support everyone who's doing game jams, because it's such an awesome initiative, basically. And to that extent, we started following this kind of core philosophy, so that if ever there's any kind of game jam that's going on, and we somehow either hear about it or get approached and asked about helping to support a game jam, at the very least, we always give trial licenses of Unity with the full suite for anyone who wants to play with Unity for the trial, for the jam, and then obviously you have some time after that as well to continue developing and things. And we also have kind of allocated a fair amount of money as well towards sponsorship, so buying pizzas or t-shirts or all kinds of things over there. And that's very much still the case, and if not so more than ever, because there's just so many more game jams these days. So it's cool. I wanted to cover a few different things that you might find useful when jamming with Unity. I guess for some people this will be kind of common knowledge, but maybe if you're a little bit newer to Unity, it might be a little bit more useful, I guess. So three key things that kind of popped into mind for game jamming with Unity. The top one, prefabs. If you're familiar with prefabs, you'll be like, oh yeah, I see how they can be helpful when rapidly iterating a game. But if not, I'll give you a little bit of an overview. Source control is kind of a crucial one, really, to some extent, depending on how hardcore you are. And built-in components as well, which one of the advantages with Unity is that you obviously have a lot of stuff that's kind of already done for you. So if you're having like a problem coming up with ideas, it can be useful to pick up. So using the power of my mind, I'm going to control Unity on my laptop right now. There we go. So yeah, this is a basic example of a prefab, right? So you've got this character, it's running around, it's got a bunch of different stuff associated with it. You've got like a camera going on, you've got a hierarchy, you've got some physics stuff going on, all kinds of scripts attached. And that's been created as a prefab. And if you're not familiar with what a prefab is it's just a collection of different objects and components that are put onto one thing and then saved. All as references, so everything's referenced back to that. And the main advantage of that is that if you... I wonder if I can pause that. Can I pause that? Yeah. Main advantage of that is that if you look in the folder there, you've got a bunch of different assets that are all linked towards that character, right? So you've got some 3D graphics, you've got some textures, you've got some scripts, and each one of those individual source assets is referenced from the prefab. So the main key thing that I'm slowly making my way towards at this point is the real advantage with prefabs in Unity for a game jam is that you can have, divide up your content that you're creating between team members and have each of them independently work on separate aspects of it and not have to worry about it breaking. Not source control. There we go. So I did a little kind of example here where I just grabbed the texture file, fired it up in Photoshop, and made it look much better. Yeah, it needs some adjustment. There we go. Way better. And then save that. And the idea is that the artist can be working away on this, and at the same time the programmer can be working on some control script or whatever it may be. And all you need to do is to upload the texture asset, and it won't be interfering with the prefab, right? So, yeah, it's kind of a simple concept, but it's also kind of really helpful if you're working in a team, especially if you're not using any kind of source control as well, or if you're using like USB source control, USB stick source control, or Dropbox source control, which I've definitely done at times. I think it can work, Just make sure you get sleep, I guess, because you can quite easily destroy everything. In terms of source control, there's a lot of options with Unity these days. The trial version that we have includes a trial with the team license stuff. So all of these options for your source control that are listed in the docs are available to you if you want to use them. So there's Perforce integration, plastic SMC, and also external source control if you wanted to use Git or Bitbucket or whatever setup you want to roll with. I'd recommend checking out the documentation on it and picking the one that you prefer. But it's definitely worth considering doing some source control just to make it so you don't lose everything and start crying at 3 AM or something, which is possible. I don't know what I'm doing there. What am I doing there? Stop doing that. The other thing as well, built-in components. If you are, say, like struggling for an idea to come up with something and you're like, we really need to nail an idea now, let's think of a really simple mechanic. A good way to go can be using some of the built-in components. Unity's got a hell of a lot of built-in components that do a lot of cool stuff. Obviously, most people are familiar with Unity, so you'll be familiar with the kind of component game object component structure. But the basic idea I'm showing here is that there's, like, say, the entire tab of physics things could be a really good way of coming up with an idea or a concept for a game based on some of those components, because it's already kind of pre-done for you in some ways, if you know what I mean. So there's, like, say, the nav mesh system. Oh, we've got an entire navigation system that's really easy to set up and automatic, and it does all of that kind of stuff for you. Maybe I'll play with an idea based on that, or it can be useful to make use of built-in components. It can take a lot of mileage. What do I do now? Oh yeah, there's some documentation on all of those components as well, which means that obviously it's very easy to pick up and play around with stuff. So, for example, here I go into some of the physics components, the rigid body. I can read up about all of it and find out what I need to know. And perhaps most crucially, I can also have a look at some of the scripting view as well, and it'll teach me everything I need to know about scripting. Here we go. And yeah, for someone like me who's perhaps not the best programmer in the world, there's script examples for all of the majority of the functions. So you can just go in and copy and paste it. Ta-da! Copy pasting programming, helping artists since. Yeah. But it does work, and it can get you really far, because ultimately game jams aren't about the most elegant code known to mankind. So yeah, I'm not sure if you've already heard this said today, but it's always a really critical piece of advice when doing game jams. Keep it simple, stupid. I don't really like it. I don't really like keep it simple, stupid. I prefer that way around. Keep it stupid, simple. Because if it's not stupid, if it's not that simple, it needs to be, I think. At least for the game jam. If it turns out that you find some really awesome mechanic that you can then, take further, go for it. But I mean, I'm the worst person because I'm terrible at like over-scoping projects and thinking, yeah, and then we'll throw in this thing and then this will happen. But no, for 48 hours, one mechanic, keep it simple, and you'll have a great time. So a few things. So this is where you can get hold of the Unity trial, that URL right there, and you can download it, and you can use it for 30 plus days, and it includes all of the things, including theme license, iOS, Android, and all that good stuff. If you're planning on making an Android and iOS game, if not, it's there anyway, so you can try porting it once you're done or something. Go. There we go. Also, this is kind of new. It's very new. I got an email about this today, actually. Unity Cloud Build Access. If you want to try out the Unity Cloud Build beta, or is it alpha? I'm not sure which in a minute. You can, which is pretty cool. The one thing you need to bear in mind is that there is like a top secret access code for it, which is this. Go. I'm losing connection. There you go. You just type game jam a lot. Is it there? Game jam. But yeah, if you're not familiar with Cloud Build, the basic concept is that you don't have to, if you're ever building something with Unity, you don't have to sit and wait for the build to actually happen. You can just send it off via cloud, and then it'll send you a nice email saying, oh yeah, by the way, all of your builds are ready, and you could carry on working through it. In addition to that, there's also a pro license sweepstake going on. Make sure you you type the URL in with case sensitiveness, if that's even a word. And the basic concept with that one is that you enter that sweepstake, and you can win a pro license, believe it or not. Hence the name. And then another one as well, you can have an asset store voucher sweepstake as well. This one's slightly different. In order to enter this one, if you just make a tweet about the project you're working on and include those two hashtags, you'll automatically be included in the sweepstake. And you can win $200 of asset store credit, which you can use to buy things off the asset store, which is nice. And I think there's like 3 or maybe 4 of those prizes available. So the annoying thing is that I don't think they'll be available during the jam. It'll be like after the jam's finished. It will kind of like, okay, the jam's over, so let's add it up. So you won't be able to use it initially, but I guess you could use it to polish things afterwards.